Welcome to the Do Good X podcast, a sanctuary from the entrepreneurial grind. Hosts Kimberly Danielle and Stephen Lewis, advocates for impactful entrepreneurship, guide you on the path where purpose meets business. Join us to slow down, reconnect, and explore the challenges of under-resourced entrepreneurs, uncovering the unique journey of building businesses that make a difference. Now, your hosts.
Welcome, everyone, to the Do Good X podcast. My name is Kimberly Danielle, and I am a community builder, a coach, and communication strategist who comes from generations of faith-driven leaders and entrepreneurs who believe that our purpose should drive us to contribute to the common good. And as usual, I am here with my co-host, Stephen. Hi, Stephen. How are you doing?
Hey, Kimberly, how are you? As you know, I'm a catalyst for positive change in communities and businesses, and for over 2 decades, I have inspired leaders and entrepreneurs to live and work on purpose with intention, faith, and a commitment to their well-being. So today, we are taking you back to season 1 conversation with Leah Hernandez, the founder and CEO of Muse Inc., an award-winning publishing company dedicated to amplifying diverse voices in adult fiction and nonfiction. Muse includes multiple imprints, including young authors publishing, and has published more than 40 books that center voices and stories often left out of the mainstream publishing world.
Yeah, I really enjoyed this conversation with Leah. Not only did she start this business when she was in college, but it has continued on. And so it's really been wonderful to see her journey and how her business has evolved over time. And in this particular episode, Leah walks us through her journey, where she did study business and marketing, like I said, at Clark Atlanta University. And then she went straight to leading her company, and what it is doing is really reshaping what representation can look like or should look like in publishing. She also shares about funding challenges and the nonprofit route she explored early on, as well as some strategic decisions that she's made to really sustain her business over time.
Yeah, she's an incredible human being and has such an inspirational story. And she chats about the bigger industry context, the lack of diversity in publishing, especially in children's books, and how her work responds not just to creativity, but structurally. She creates access, opportunities, and ownership in an industry that hasn't always made room for that.
Absolutely. So if you're tuning in and your business is in the publishing industry, or if you are just looking generally at how to lead and build your work and your business in a sustainable way, this episode will definitely offer you some insight. So let's get started. So just starting out, I am always curious about people's why behind the launch of their business. And I know you started the vision of what is now Muse Inc. back when you were in college. So can you share with us what led you to pursue entrepreneurship? What led you to start a business, especially while you were in college?
Yeah. And I think the why has adjusted over the years. When I first started, and I'll take it all the way back to even before Young Authors Publishing, my sophomore year of undergrad studying at Clark Atlanta University, I wrote and published my own book. And that really opened me up to the world of books. It was more of a call that I got, and something that really was a download and that I felt that was necessary at the time. And I had no idea that it would propel me into this career that I have now. It was just an assignment from God that I was like, okay, I'm going to write this book. It'll be one and done. And then it was like a world of possibilities were opened. And so I had the privilege to help other people, consult and write and publish their book. And then a mentor of mine told me about the Atlanta Housing Authority, and they had a grant program at the time. They were looking for new initiatives for young people. And so I said, hey, well, I wrote a book. I'm a junior in college now. I don't know how to do anything else. So if I could provide anything of value, it would be to help kids write and publish a book. And so I did that. We did Roxy's Day in Vine City. And at that time, I was a lot of the work that I was doing at schools around financial literacy. So I was going to the west side of Atlanta, going to communities, going to events and teaching people, which is really ironic as a broke college student, but that was the internship that I had at the time, was teaching people how to manage their money and save their money. And I realized, well, a lot of people from our communities don't have access to capital. And so here was this new skill that I knew how to do, which was to write and publish a book that is now a product that these kids can sell and make money. So the why when I first started this company was really about financial freedom and giving access to capital through storytelling. And then the more I learned about this industry, the more years that I put in, then I noticed the link of the gap of diversity in literature, not just in children's literature, but across the entire industry. So the why went from financial access and stability and financial literacy to then, oh no, kids need more books that reflect their community and reflect their lives. And then I got even more into the industry, and then I was like, oh, well, this industry is not really diverse. I'm going to these conferences and these trade shows, and I'm, one of one, one of two, one of three on a good day. And it makes sense why we don't see diversity in the books we read, because we're not in these rooms. We're not working at these publishing companies. We don't own these publishing companies. And so I started to just kind of see more of the systemic hurdles that actualize to us not being in books and films, and then access to capital. And I kind of see how they were all connected. And then here we are today. So
I want to talk a little bit about where you started with Young Authors Publishing. And I know that imprint started as a nonprofit when you started your business back fresh out of college. What were some of the opportunities and challenges in this business structure? And what led you to pivot to a different business structure when you developed Muse Inc?
Yeah, that's a great question. And I'm laughing because it just seems like a whole nother world that I was living when we were a nonprofit. And I'm just so grateful for where we are now. The thing is when I started this, I was still in college, and I had attended a fellowship. It was a predominantly white fellowship, and a lot of entrepreneurs who were college students at the time and were starting businesses. And I remember going, and I remember one of the other people in the fellowship were like, yeah, we started this business, but we only got a small investment of $250,000. It's like, what are we supposed to do with that? And I'm like sitting there like with my $5,000 grant from Atlanta Housing Authority, like, I thought I did something, like, this is great. And I just remember being around people at that time who understood that I wanted to provide access to capital and give a platform for storytelling. And the advice that I was given during that time was, oh, foundations would jump at the opportunity to give you money for this. So many funders would love to just give you money to do this work. And so I was like, okay, well, that seems like the easy answer. We're going to go nonprofit, because apparently there are funders and foundations and, all of these other institutions who give to nonprofits. And this seems like a very innovative thing that they would want to give to. And then I got into it, and I realized that a lot of these institutions and foundations give to the same nonprofits they give to often. And there's often a resistance to innovation. And people couldn't get behind the fact that this was a real product that deserved to be in the marketplace. And there were things that we needed to do in order for that to take place. They wanted us to focus more on the programming and going to the schools, which we were doing, but we also needed to go to trade shows. And I wanted to go to international shows so I can get our students' books translated in different languages. And it was just a really big disconnect. And then I sat back and I realized, well, I'm doing all this work, and I would love to exit this company at some point, have a payout for myself, have a bigger payout for our authors so that way they can get more money. And the nonprofit structure it's not possible with that type of structure. And so it was a very difficult decision, because I was afraid that our community wouldn't understand. I was afraid that people would think that my why was changing, when in fact my exposure had just changed and my knowledge had changed, and I had found a better way to do this work outside of the structures of a nonprofit. And then my time and capacity, instead of applying for grants, I could just focus on selling more books and getting more authors and creating more innovative programs. And yeah, it was a difficult transition to make, but ultimately I think that it was the best one for the future of our company, our books, and our authors.
What advice or tips would you give an entrepreneur who is considering if they should start a for-profit or nonprofit venture? What would be helpful for them when they're approaching that?
Yeah, that's a great question. The first thing I would say is have your exit in mind. What I mean by that is when you feel like you have done this work to the best of your ability, you've fulfilled your goals and everything that you want, do you want to exit? Do you want to get a return on the work that you've done, or do you want to pass it on to another nonprofit or completely stop it? The option to keep it going and to get paid for it and to have some type of return for either you, your shareholders, or your community and the people that you're serving can only happen in a for-profit. The second is the work that you're doing, is there a financial model that's sustainable? So do you have a product that can go to market that could sustain the company and without having to apply for grants? Because that was also a transition. I transitioned to for-profit and found myself still searching for grants. And I'm an entrepreneur, so I'll always have that in me. But I'm like, girl, you need to focus on sales. You're trying to get grants. Like we switched gears, Leah. We have switched gears. So that would be the second thing. If you have a product that can go to market and you believe is successful, you may want to explore what your for-profit models and options are. And the third thing I would say is, what is your mission and your why? And it's important for you to understand what that is so you could figure out the best model for that possible. Because the reality is that there is money out there for a nonprofit, and the work you are doing may be better for that. But you have to figure out what your why is, what you're trying to accomplish, how much it's going to take to accomplish that thing. And if those things are priorities for foundations and institutions. Publishing books sounded like a cute thing, but when we were really trying to talk about, completely transforming the publishing industry and bringing in people of color, foundations were like, okay, this is outside of just teaching reading to kids on the weekend. Like, I don't know if I want to do that. So those would be my three things. Figure out what your why is, figure out what your business model is. And if you go to for-profit, is that sustainable? Can you do that without relying on grants and funders? And then I'll stop there because I can list a whole bunch, but I think that those are the most important.
To young students, especially students of color, who might be listening and have something nudging them and pulling them toward a business and toward entrepreneurship, what advice would you give to them?
To just do it. The best thing that I could have done in college was to start when I did. And I think the beautiful thing about I know for myself, being in college, especially during that time, because I didn't know anything, ignorance was bliss. And so I believed that I could do it all. And, fear and all that stuff didn't come later until I learned more about how difficult this stuff is. But the relentlessness and the willingness to just jump up and start something and grab it because you have the time, you have the space, and believe it or not, college students, you have the resources. And I'll pause on just do it to talk about the resources because I'm all about practicality. Being a college student is the best advantage I believe that you have as an entrepreneur, because one, you have your institution to help you and back you. There have been HBCU initiative, which is HBCU, I think FSI, and I may be misquoting them, but if you look up the HBCU initiative, they are a VC fund that specifically supports HBCU college students who want to start their own business. Black Girl Ventures is another. They have pitch competitions for students of color and college students who are starting their own businesses. So I think now more than ever, you have pitch competitions and grants and all of these resources available for college students. Use that and maximize on it. Your refund check, if you're doing it right, I hope that you're applying for scholarships and grants. I was so relentless with applying for scholarships, which helped me to then applying in grants in my business later. But I would get refund checks that were completely free, and I would use those refund checks to help with whatever cost I needed to help produce books and things like that. And then also you can use the advantage of being a student and asking questions for research purposes. Nobody loves to share knowledge and wisdom, more than they love sharing it with students and young people. And so I think that the ability to pick people's brain and ask them questions and lean on your faculty and lean on your professors is something that was also a huge advantage for me. So if you are a college student, you feel that nudge, you feel like you have the ability and the capacity to do something, start it now, because when you graduate college, life is only going to life. And there are going to be so many other reasons that keep you from starting that thing. So the time is now. And then it'll also just give you more experience as you grow. I have 7 years of experience in publishing, and I'm not even 30 yet because I started young. So I think that that's the advantage too, is the opportunity to learn and grow. So I know that was a lot, but I really hope and pray that you take away the fact that you can do it. The time is now, and you have everything that you need to get started.
What resources can you offer that will prepare people well for building a business in the publishing industry?
Phenomenal question. Thank you. The first I would say is to sign up for Publishers Weekly. They are the top trade magazine for all things publishing. That's where I learned a lot. Before I even met anyone who worked in publishing, for the first 2 years of my business, I would religiously read their articles every day in class at times, because that was the only way or opportunity I had to learn about the industry without being in it, because I recognize it's a very hard and difficult industry to get in if you don't know anybody. But Publishers Weekly is going to tell you who's publishing what. They're going to send you trends. They're going to introduce you to different publishing companies, and it's a great starting place. And it's free to sign up. They have subscription tiers, but it is free. The second I would say is an organization called PubWest. They're an association for small to mid-sized publishers. So in publishing, you have your big five, Penguin Random House, Simon Schuster, the list goes on. And then you have independent publishers like myself. Independent publishers make up a big part of publishing. I think a lot of times people only think about the big five of the world, but there are tons of small to mid-sized publishers that exist. And PubWest, as well as IBPA, are two associations that serve both of these publishers. I serve on the board for PubWest, and we created an internship program specifically for people of color. And so we give you access to a paid internship, which honey, I did not understand why publishing did not want to pay folks in this industry for internships. I was just like, people have to pay bills. People have things to do, and they can't go buy a sandwich with free money or free books. So I digress. They have an internship, as well as Legacy Unbound, which I'm really honored to be working with this year. It is founded by an incredible Black woman, and her team is amazing. And they also create paid internships for people of color who want to work in the industry. But the cool thing about Legacy Unbound is they pair you specifically with Black and Brown owned publishing companies, bookstores, or literary agencies. So you're working with people who look like you, which oftentimes isn't that accessible because it's not many of us. So I would encourage you to go to Legacy Unbound, PubWest, IBPA, as well as Publishers Weekly. That is a great starting point to just kind of have a better understanding of publishing, and a great way to get some internships and some fellowships as well.
Thank you so much, Leah, for joining me in this conversation today. There are a lot of gems that you offered, and I hope you all have enjoyed hearing her, hearing someone's perspective coming from the publishing industry who has a thriving business. And just continue to tune in. We want to journey with you. We want to hear from you, and we hope to connect with you. Until then, be good and do well.
Thank you for listening to the Do Good X podcast. To continue the conversation or access our resources, visit www.dogoodx.org. Join us again for conversations that will nourish your soul, ignite your dreams, and empower you to build an impactful business, one intentional step at a time. Until then, keep striving, thriving, and doing good.